Previously, Harry returned to 1991 with all his powers. But the timeline is already shifting. In Part 2, the wizarding world begins to feel the ripple effects. Let's dive in. Amelia grimaced to herself as she swallowed back another mouthful of fire whiskey, letting the burn trickle down her throat as she turned to stare at the 38-year-old Harry Potter that seemed to be appraising her with his vibrant green eyes. In the last hour and a half they'd been through the first 3 years of Harry's school life, and now had a much better understanding of Harry, Sirius Black, Remus Lupin, and a dozen other things that she now had a dire need of investigating. You-know-who was really a half-blood, that alone was a kick in the teeth for all the Death Eaters out there, but the fact that he was still alive, and possessing Professor Quirrell at Hogwarts right now, was knowledge that chilled the blood in her veins. More? Harry asked, holding out the bottle of fire whiskey dubiously towards Amelia. Will I need it? Amelia asked with a raised eyebrow. Oh definitely, Harry snorted in amusement. Next up we've got the Goblet of Fire tournament, where Barty Crouch Jr. got my name entered while he was polyjuiced as Mad-Eye Moody. He managed to work at Hogwarts all year without Dumbledore suspecting a thing, then got me into a graveyard at the end for a ritual to recreate Voldemort's body using the bones of his father. He explained bluntly. So, more? Definitely, Amelia nodded, sliding her glass over towards the bottle of fire whiskey. Thought so, Harry smirked over, pouring out a generous helping both for himself and for Amelia. I always knew Albus could be heartless, but this. Amelia grimaced as she thought back to the highlights of the last year that she'd witnessed in the Pensieve. Why didn't he do anything for Sirius if he knew he was innocent? He could have stood for Sirius and vouched for him just like he did for Severus after the last war. I've thought a lot about that, Harry admitted with a shrug. Best I can figure, he wanted to keep Sirius away from me. If he's on the run as a wanted man, I had to go back to my relatives every year and wasn't learning anything from Sirius in the holidays between school. It does seem that way, Amelia nodded. It was a very logical conclusion that fit all the facts. I've never thought highly of Albus Dumbledore, I've never hidden that fact. I always wondered why. Harry frowned thoughtfully. When Dumbledore got his Order of the Phoenix back together, he invited everyone that was still around that could face Voldemort, but he never invited you. I always wondered why not? Because I'd have told him where to shove it, Amelia said bluntly. Albus Bloody Dumbledore is the reason my brother Susan's parents were killed in the last war. They died on some half-assed mission he sent them on because they always believed Albus Bloody Dumbledore practically pissed Felix Felicis. I always thought he had a spy in the Death Eaters and sent them to die to cover up his spy's actions when he could have prevented it, but now I know. Snape. Harry nodded thoughtfully. Severus. Amelia confirmed with a nod. Harry had explained about Snape during the first year's memories, though knowing he was a spy didn't really change anything much about Snape's behavior really. He was still a bully, a bigot, and a tormentor. He was just doing it on Dumbledore's orders now instead of off his own choice. Snape let people die last time around too, in the future, or whatever. Charity Burbage, and he let kids get tortured when the Death Eaters took over the school, just to keep up his spy act. Dumbledore doesn't really care about people, or anyone really. Harry explained bluntly as he swallowed a mouthful of whiskey. He's only interested in his end goal, and if he has to sacrifice a school full of children to do it, then. He trailed off with a shrug. He'd do it without a second thought. Amelia grimaced as she nodded in agreement with that. His memories of his first year of school had proved that much alone. Albus Dumbledore had known Voldemort was after the Philosopher's Stone and had intentionally lured him to Hogwarts. He'd intentionally lured a mass murderer into a school full of innocent children. That was the bottom line. There was no defense for that as far as she was concerned. That fact alone was making her seriously consider sending Susan to Beauxbatons instead of Hogwarts this year. First things first, how are you going to deal with Voldemort? Amelia asked, forcing herself to say the fearful name. You say he's possessing this professor. Quirrell was it? Well, I was thinking of just punching him in his face until he turns to dust. Harry grinned across at her, nearly making her choke on her whiskey as she tried to imagine the sight. You're serious? Amelia snorted in amusement when she saw Harry's grin. Why not? Harry shrugged. Whatever magic that's protecting me from Voldemort turned Quirrell to dust when he tried to grab me. It'll work just as well in a punch. Probably, Amelia admitted with a nod. Did you ever find out exactly what it was that protected you from his touch? Hermione thought it was some sort of sacrificial protection, but we never really investigated it properly. Harry explained. Dumbledore said something similar, but I'd trust his words about as far as I could throw Hagrid. He explained with a laugh. Good reasoning, Amelia nodded in agreement with both points. And this blood bond reasoning Albus gave for you returning to your relatives? I've never heard of such a thing. Because it's a pile of shit, Harry explained bluntly. Dumbledore claims he placed the charm on me, but I've seen Minerva's memory of that night. He didn't do a damn thing. He was lying out of his arse, again. He just wanted to keep me at the Dursleys so I'd see him as some sort of savior each year when I escaped back to Hogwarts. Amelia nodded again, unable to find fault with anything Harry was saying. Albus lies a lot. I've caught him in his own lies more than a few times over the years. It's one of the reasons he stays out of my way at the Ministry. He's not going to get away with anything this time around, Harry said with a firm nod, turning his words into a vow for himself. I'll take him down myself if I need to. Could you? Amelia asked, raising an eyebrow curiously. Albus might be. Well, a pathological liar, manipulator, and general menace, but he's not to be trifled with. Yes, he really is. Harry smirked in amusement. Dumbledore isn't that powerful, trust me on that. He's barely equal to Voldemort, and that when he's boosting up his own power. Boosting up his power? Amelia asked, looking at Harry curiously at the statement. Albus is the one person Voldemort feared. Only because. Harry paused, frowning thoughtfully. He has a special wand, it's not really important though, but it boosts his power. Without it, he's a far second rate to Voldemort. I see. Amelia frowned thoughtfully, not having ever heard of a wand with that particular power before. And you can counter it? I'm Voldemort's equal without Dumbledore's fancy wand, with it? Harry smirked in amusement as Amelia's eyes went wide. Dumbledore isn't a threat, trust me on that. The wand works great for anyone else, but for my family, it's like an heirloom of power. The Potters? Amelia asked in confusion. Peverell. Harry explained after a moment's pause, grinning when he saw the flicker of recognition in Amelia's eyes before they went wider than he'd ever seen. The Elder Wand, Amelia whispered reverently. Albus had it all these years? That's where his reputation about being so powerful comes from, he took it from Grindelwald. Harry nodded in confirmation. All his reputation is built on stories and hearsay after he got the wand, it's all because of that. Take it away or counter it, and he's a second-rate wizard at best. He's got enough knowledge secreted away to make him valuable, but he's not a threat magically in any way. And Amelia stammered out. The cloak and the stone? Harry asked in amusement before nodding. I have them too. Are they really? Were they? I mean. Amelia tried to gather her thoughts as she looked at Harry in shock. Made by death? Harry asked with a smirk. Honestly, I don't know. He admitted with a shrug. I don't think so, and I've got all three of them. It doesn't make me this master of death or some godlike wizard or anything. He explained with a snort of laughter. I think they were made by the three brothers actually, they just made up the story about death giving them as gifts to boost their reputation, he said with a shrug. That's my theory anyway. And you? You're the last descendant? Amelia asked curiously. Aside from Voldemort. Harry nodded back then clarified when she looked at him in confusion. His mother was from the Gaunt family, they trace back to the Peverells as well. Cadmus I think, the one with the resurrection stone. He explained with a smirk. Hell, being obsessed with cheating death must run in the family for him, he said with a grin. You have a strange sense of humor, you know that? Amelia muttered, rubbing her forehead in frustration at everything she'd learnt this afternoon. I've been told, Harry admitted with a smirk. So, what now? He asked, gently tossing his empty glass between his hands as he focused on looking over at Amelia. What now indeed? Amelia nodded thoughtfully, draining her own glass with a grimace as the fiery liquid burnt down her throat. Obviously stopping. Voldemort is the priority here. I can take care of that, Harry nodded thoughtfully. I know where his Horcruxes are. Malfoy still has the diary, so I can't get to that one. He explained, ticking off one finger. The locket is still at Grimmauld Place, I'd need Sirius to get that one. He explained, ticking off another finger. The tiara thing is at Hogwarts. He ticked off a third finger. The ring is buried in Little Hangleton, I can get to that one easily enough. I saw enough of the memories of it to find it. He explained with a nod. The cup is in the Lestrange vault at Gringotts, I've got no idea how to get that one this time around. He admitted with a grimace. Gringotts? Amelia frowned thoughtfully. How did you destroy it last time? Broke into Gringotts and rode a dragon out, pretty much destroying the bank in the process. Harry admitted with a grin. Amelia practically choked when she realized he was serious, and shook her head at the thought. You'll be showing me that memory sometime I hope? She asked with a small smile. The Lestranges are in Azkaban. I doubt I'd be able to get the goblins to cooperate in handing over access to their vault. Harry nodded at that. The cup was the only one that was really a puzzle. He doesn't create another Horcrux until 94, so we've got 3 years grace to round the rest up. Assuming he doesn't change his plans when you face him at Hogwarts. Amelia countered with a frown. You think I shouldn't? Harry asked, cocking his head to the side in confusion. You'd bloody better, or I'll be pulling Susan out of that school before her first week is out. Amelia glared back at him. There's no way in hell I'm letting my niece stay in that building with you-know-who skulking around. Fair point, Harry mused thoughtfully. And countering Albus and Severus? Amelia prompted him. Dumbledore. He'll be a problem. Harry admitted with a frown. Taking my younger self out of his control, he'll throw his dummy out of the pram and start making things difficult. He has a pathological need to be in control and be the person manipulating everyone from behind the scenes. I'd assumed as much. Amelia nodded in agreement. He'll likely try and drag you before the Wizengamot or attempt to drug you with Veritaserum. Probably both, Harry grimaced. That's when his grandfather act doesn't work and his I'm so disappointed in you speech falls flat. He explained with a smirk. Then he'll probably finish with his you are going dark threatening speech before he resorts to anything else. Ah, you've been on the receiving end of those too, I see, Amelia chuckled in amusement. Keeping up the pretense that your James Potter might be your best bet actually. Harry mused, looking at Amelia and wondering what she was thinking. It'll keep the spotlight away from the younger Harry, and give you autonomy to prevent Albus from taking control again. Amelia explained. A few sightings here and there, a leaked story to the Prophet, then you turn up at Harry's sorting at Hogwarts and confront both Voldemort and Dumbledore at the same time. Possibly, Harry admitted thoughtfully. My dad. He had brown eyes though, at least from what I've been told. I got my eyes from my mum. I'd assumed so, Amelia nodded. I knew Lily far better than I knew James, and honestly couldn't have told you what color his eyes were without referring to a photo. He only wore glasses for reading as well, Sirius told me that. Harry mused as he tried to think up anything else he could remember about his father. He was an Auror, a good one of the best. Amelia smiled over. I was a year above him at Hogwarts, but I didn't really know him well back then. I've heard the stories, Harry nodded, knowing full well his father wasn't the saint a lot of people made him out to be. What house were you in? Hufflepuff, Amelia smiled proudly. It's actually a weight off my mind to know that Susan will find herself sorted into my old house as well. She's a good friend, Harry smiled knowingly. She'll be an amazing friend later on. He explained with a small laugh. Oh? You and Susan? Amelia smirked over. Nothing like that, Harry laughed, waving the thought away. We had a few dates, that was. God, a few years after Hogwarts. She joined the Aurors like I did. We worked together and had a few dates after long shifts, but it never went anywhere. Why not? Amelia asked, curiosity getting the better of her. We're too similar, Harry admitted with a shrug. Both of us had our share of ghosts, and we were still moving past the war and everything that happened. He explained with a sigh. Did she ever meet anyone? Amelia asked hesitantly. She had a boyfriend, I think. It wasn't something we really talked about much. Harry explained with an apologetic smile. Sorry I can't tell you more. What about you? Did you ever find anyone? Amelia asked curiously. A string of mistakes, Harry chuckled to himself. Ginny Weasley, a fangirl who was only interested in my fame. That spluttered out early on when her mother tried to control my life just as much as Dumbledore had. I got out of that one before she started playing for the Harpies. I know the Weasleys, Arthur anyway. Works at the Ministry. Amelia nodded back. Arthur's a good guy, Molly's a controlling busybody who screams and shouts at anyone who dares disagree with her. Harry explained. I saw in your memories, your first train ride to Hogwarts? Amelia frowned thoughtfully. She was there, yelling about platform 9 3/4 while walking through the Muggle side of the station? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was Dumbledore's plan to integrate me into the Weasleys. Harry nodded in agreement, seeing what Amelia was thinking. Not exactly subtle, but I didn't know any better back then. I'll have some Aurors posted at the station this time around, even if she was following Albus' orders. I can't let a breach of secrecy like that go without coming down on her for it. Amelia frowned back. I assume Mr. Weasley doesn't grow out of his childish ways anytime soon? Ron? Harry snorted, shaking his head at the thought. He gets worse really. 4th year he's one of the leaders who thinks I entered my name in the Goblet of Fire, kicks up a fuss about it and treats me like crap until I finish the first task, then when I'm popular again he's all buddy-buddy and back in the spotlight. He explained with a frown before reaching for the fire whiskey and pouring out another glass before offering it to Amelia. I'd better not. Amelia shook her head towards the bottle. Shrugging at that, Harry put the cork back in the bottle before continuing on his thoughts. 7th year, well, what should have been our 7th year anyway? He abandons us when we're hunting down the Horcruxes, but that's never part of the story he tells when he's reliving the glory days to spread his fame around. He explained with a sigh. He's a jealous and petty idiot with anger problems and a chip on his shoulder the size of Gryffindor Tower. I'll tell the other me all about him and why he should stay away from him. I see, Amelia nodded thoughtfully. A nice distraction, by the way, moving away from your story about your dalliances. Harry grinned, raising his glass in a mock toast towards Amelia. You spotted that then? He asked with a smirk. All right, Cho Chang. That was a mess, it sort of fizzled out before we even got anywhere. Not that we really had anything in common anyway besides both playing Seeker. He explained with a shrug. Those were the only 2 girls I ever kissed at Hogwarts. Really? Amelia asked, raising an eyebrow in shock. And afterwards? She asked curiously. A few, Harry nodded. Katie Bell, we had a thing for a few months while she was playing for Puddlemere. You seem to have a thing for Quidditch players, Amelia smirked in amusement at the pattern. I noticed, me and Katie might have been something, but I was too invested in the Aurors, and she was making her mark for Puddlemere, so it never got as serious as it could have been. Harry shrugged back. A few dates with Susan, a smattering of dates here and there. And Hermione? Amelia asked, raising an eyebrow. I'm surprised nothing ever happened between the 2 of you. Honestly, so am I, Harry admitted with a sigh. I wanted to, a few times. He admitted, ruffling his hair in frustration. By the time I got up the nerve to do anything about it, she'd left the magical world and was living with the Muggles again. I couldn't be the person to drag her back into all of this, not when she'd finally got out of it all. Ah, Amelia nodded, seeing the regret in Harry's eyes for what it was. She was the one for him, and he'd let her leave so she could be happy rather than make her choose between her life and a life with him. Why did she leave? She seemed rather bright and full of life? The bigotry, Harry explained with a shrug. It started in Hogwarts, and got worse when Voldemort came back. He explained bluntly. When we defeated him, Minister Shacklebolt explained that me and Ron would be getting awarded the Order of Merlin medals, but she wouldn't. Amelia nodded. There's never been a Muggle born awarded an Order of Merlin. Exactly, Harry frowned in frustration. She started working at the Ministry after Hogwarts, passed all of her newts with O's, and then suffered with getting passed over for promotion time after time for pureblood idiots who simply got promoted just because of their families. I don't blame her for leaving. Amelia grimaced, it wasn't painting a very welcome picture of her world at all. I'm giving it 4 years this time, Harry said bluntly, tossing back the glass of fire whiskey and draining it in a single gulp. If by the end of 4th year Voldemort isn't dealt with and the pure blood bullshit stamped out, I'll take Harry, Hermione and anyone else that wants to go, and leave this country for good. Voldemort can have it, the idiots around deserve him. He explained bitterly. You don't mean that, Amelia frowned over. Maybe, Harry groused, rolling the glass between his hands in frustration. What did we ever accomplish? Bugger all, that's what. 20 years on, Voldemort's gone, but the pure blood bigots are still running the show. The Ministry's still corrupt, the Wizengamot is still full of bribery and back alley deals, and the world's just as fucked up as it was when I started Hogwarts. Nothing's changed. You can't expect to change the world overnight, Amelia said with a comforting smile. We can only do what we can. Overnight would be a miracle, 20 years, I'd say that's giving them enough of a chance. Harry explained with a shrug. Maybe, Amelia admitted with a sigh. Well, let's work on what we can first. Disguising you as your father. Harry nodded as he put his glass aside and thought about it for a second. A glamour won't do, Dumbledore or Mad Eye would see right through it. I'll have to do it like the Muggles do. Muggles? Amelia asked curiously. Contact lenses that change the eye color, easy enough to get hold of. Harry explained with a dismissive wave. Makeup to cover up the scar, I've done that enough times when I wanted some peace and quiet for a bit. Will that be enough? Amelia asked with a thoughtful glance. Nobody will think I'm a future Harry, that's just crazy. Harry explained with a grin. They'll check for glamours and polyjuice, then when those don't show up anything, they'll jump to the simplest conclusion, that you're James Potter. Amelia nodded in agreement. It should work. And I agree, nobody is going to think you're your future self, especially not if you're stood alongside him. Everyone knows time turners can't go back that far, and even if they could, you wouldn't be able to interact with yourself without going crazy. Who said I'm not crazy? Harry asked with a small smirk, looking over at Amelia, who burst into laughter at his comment, nodding her head to concede the point that he had to at least be a little bit crazy after everything he'd been through. They look cozy. Susan commented with a smile, looking through the window at where her auntie and Harry's dad were sharing a drink and chatting between themselves. Yeah, Harry nodded thoughtfully. I wonder what they're talking about? Grown-up stuff, Susan shrugged. Auntie talks a lot about Auror stuff and work at the ministry. It's all pretty boring really. I'll bet, Harry smiled in agreement. So what other classes will we have at Hogwarts? I'm looking forward to charms the most, Susan grinned with a little excited bounce. Transfiguration is supposed to be really tough, but my aunt's really good at it. And that? Defense stuff? Harry prompted her. Defense against the dark arts. Susan explained. Yeah, I guess, but everyone's going to be expecting me to be brilliant at it because of who my aunt is. Probably me too, Harry admitted with a grimace. Oh God, I didn't mean. Susan trailed off. Sorry, I didn't mean anything by that. It's all right, Harry shrugged the comment off. What about the rest? Potions, the teacher is supposed to be a real creep. Susan explained in a whisper. I've heard friends talking about him, and he hates everyone. Why is he even a teacher then? Harry asked in confusion. Nobody knows, Susan shook her head. But everyone's afraid of getting on his wrong side. So I'll just be hiding at the back in potions class and hoping he doesn't pick on me for anything. Harry nodded at that, making a mental note to ask his older self about potions and what the teacher was really like. What house do you think you'll be in? Susan asked curiously. I'm hoping I get into Hufflepuff like my auntie and my mum was, but my dad was in Gryffindor, so. She trailed off with a shrug. Gryffindor could be fun, Harry admitted with a grin, his older self having already told him that he was in Gryffindor and made some great friends there. I bet you'll be trying out for Quidditch as well, right? Susan grinned in amusement. Definitely, Harry grinned back, remembering what his older self had told him about how he was going to be brilliant on a broomstick. We might be cheering against each other then, Susan explained with a mock glare. Hufflepuff versus Gryffindor. Doesn't mean we can't be friends though, even if we are in different houses, right? Harry asked hopefully. Of course not, Susan smiled happily back. Well, as long as you're not in Slytherin anyway. That's the snake house, right? Harry asked. Definitely, Susan nodded back. I've never heard of a Slytherin ever being friends with anyone outside of their house before. Wow, sounds lonely. Harry mused thoughtfully. Maybe, Susan admitted with a shrug. Maybe if they weren't bullying everyone else then people would be friendlier towards them. Maybe, Harry parroted back with a grin. What about my auntie and your dad then? Susan said with a laugh. If they started dating, we could be brother and sister. She smiled eagerly at the thought. I don't know if Dad is looking to date anyone. Harry managed to get out without laughing. Why not? Susan asked curiously. He makes my aunt laugh, that's rare enough, and she seems to make him happy as well. I don't even know if he's dating anyone at the moment, Harry frowned thoughtfully, not really wanting to get into scary thoughts of what his older self was doing with girls. I think they'd be cute together, Susan explained with a shrug. Harry simply frowned at that, looking back through the window and sparing his older self with a curious glance. How much had his life changed just in the single day he'd found out about magic? His older self had been living with it for practically forever. Things like flying on broomsticks and traveling through fireplaces were normal for him, but something he was still finding really weird. You two doing all right? Yes, Auntie, Susan waved back eagerly as she saw her aunt come to the window and look out of it towards them both. What have you been doing? Nothing much, Susan shrugged. Talking about starting Hogwarts mostly. I showed Harry down to the river and back then around the trees. We've just been talking really. Good, it's nearly dinner time. Harry and James will be staying for tea, all right? Great. Susan grinned eagerly, happy that her aunt had someone to talk to now that wasn't going to be all work and ministry stuff. Go on and get washed up then, show Harry where the bathroom is and make sure both of you wash your hands. Yes, Auntie, Susan nodded happily, grabbing onto Harry's hand and pulling him along behind her as she dashed off to the door to come inside and run upstairs to the bathroom. Kids, Amelia grinned in amusement, looking back at the older Harry that was watching in amusement. You never had the pleasure? No, Harry admitted. I looked after my godson for a bit, He lived with his grandparent after the war. I stayed around as much as I could. He explained thoughtfully, wondering if he'd ever get to see Teddy again this time around. Ah, you know the feeling then. Amelia smiled thoughtfully. Mixture of worry, horror and wishing they'd never learned how to talk? Harry grinned back. Definitely. Amelia laughed openly at that, firmly nodding in agreement with Harry's assessment. Tippy? She asked aloud, waiting for a brief second before the house elf popped into existence in the living room. 4 for dinner tonight, she said with a nod down towards the little creature. Yes ma'am, Tippy nodded eagerly. In the dining room please, as soon as you're ready. Amelia nodded before the house elf vanished again with another pop. I know she's not as crazy as that Dobby was from your memories, but she's been a godsend with Susan growing up here. I can imagine, Harry smiled in agreement. You sure you're okay with having us both over for dinner? I was just going to cook something for me and... well, me I guess. I'll start calling you James in my head as well, it'll be less confusing that way. Amelia commented with a smirk. Yeah, probably. Harry admitted with a grimace, inwardly hoping that wherever his dad was in the afterlife, he didn't mind him taking over his name like this. Shall we? Amelia asked, gesturing towards the dining room as she heard the thundering footsteps coming down the stairs that indicated both the children had washed their hands and were ready for their meal. We shall, Harry grinned up, moving over to follow Amelia through to wherever she was leading him. You can cook too then? Amelia asked, breaking the silence as she led Harry through to the dining hall. That's unusual to find, most wizards don't bother to learn. I do all right, Harry nodded comfortably. I'm no fancy chef or anything, but I can make most things without turning them into charcoal. I'll have to hold you to that and see what you're made of sometime. Amelia smiled over as she slowed down a bit to walk alongside Harry into the dining hall. That sounds like a challenge? Harry smirked back. Oh definitely, Amelia grinned back as Susan and the younger Harry joined them in the dining hall for their evening meal. 25th of July, 1991. Potter Manor. Honley. West Yorkshire. England. Harry frowned as he woke up, blinking the sleep out of his eyes as he tried to gather his bearings together and figure out where he was. The fact that the light was coming through a window on the wrong side of the bedroom had thrown him off entirely for a moment, and it took him a few minutes to get his brain into gear and remember what had happened last night. Getting back from having dinner with the Bones family, they'd finally had time to sit down and discuss things just between themselves, with his younger self being eager to start exploring the new house and living his life for himself for once. He couldn't really blame him. He remembered back when he was his age and tasted freedom for the first time when he'd started Hogwarts. It was an exhilarating feeling and one that he couldn't deny his younger self from experiencing. So he'd shown his younger self around the manor, pointing out the various bathrooms, study areas, library, potions room, and bedrooms around the 4 floors of the house. Explaining little stories behind each of them as he went through, and smiling to himself as he saw the excited and wondrous expression on his younger self as he learned about his family for the first time. Then it had come to the discussion about bedrooms and what to do with them. When his younger self had asked about his dad's bedroom, Harry hadn't been able to deny him. He'd slept in that room for close to 20 years now, so maybe it was time to move on and claim the manor properly for himself and not simply living here in the shadow of his parents again. With that decision in mind, he'd given his father's bedroom to his younger self, while he decided to claim the main bedroom that would have been his grandparents' room for himself. After the younger Harry had gone to bed, he'd spent the time idly cleaning up the various rooms in the house while planning things and jotting down as many notes about his Hogwarts life as he could remember. Destroying Voldemort's Horcruxes were definitely top of his list, but getting to them was the problem at the moment. There was only one that was really accessible, another he would be able to get to when his younger self started Hogwarts, but the other 2 were going to be a problem, and that wasn't even including the piece of Voldemort's soul that was lodged in his younger self at the moment. There were so many problems still to overcome, but he at least had a plan for now and would be able to work on things as time went on. Clambering out of bed, he grabbed his glasses from the bedside table before tugging his jeans on and frowning thoughtfully. He'd been wearing the same clothes and simply cleaning them with charms or transfiguring a few other items ever since he'd arrived back in this time, but eventually he would need other clothes, and his younger self definitely would, as he was still wearing Dudley's old hand-me-downs. More shopping, Harry groused to himself as he finished buttoning up his jeans, ruffling his messy hair as he ignored his shirt for now and headed out of the bedroom to wander downstairs in search of coffee. Wandering down the spiral stairway, he took a moment to peek down the first-floor corridor to see what his younger self was up to, idly poking his head around the door and shrugging when he saw that he wasn't still in bed or anywhere in the bedroom. Leaving the location of his younger self aside for the moment, he continued on downstairs, ambling through the living room towards the kitchen with a frown, making a mental note to change the living room around back to how he liked it when he got chance. It didn't take him long to set the stovetop kettle to boil and make up a fresh mug of coffee. It was only instant Nescafé, but it was coffee, and for now it was the best he could do. Enjoying a few sips of the coffee, he frowned as he looked at his arm, noticing the way the hairs were standing on end a bit before he focused on feeling the cold air coming through the kitchen. Following the breeze out, he headed towards the front door, spotting his younger self sitting on the doorstep with a glass of water beside him and a book in hand. "Morning," he grunted aloud, causing his younger self to startle and spin around to look at him. "What you got there?" he asked with idle curiosity as he leaned against the doorframe, content to enjoy his morning coffee in the fresh air. "I borrowed it from the library upstairs. Is that all right?" the younger Harry asked hopefully as he looked up at his older self. He was still really coming to terms with that, and as he looked up at his older self, the differences between him and the older him were drastic and rather visible to see. His older self seemed happy to just walk around in jeans, topless and not caring what anyone thought about him, but then his body was strong, muscled and fully grown. It wasn't skinny enough to show off his ribs or littered with bruises like his body often was. He actually wondered when he would grow that sort of confidence. One day maybe he would be as comfortable in his body as his older self was, instead of preferring to hide away under baggy clothes and shying away from being touched. "It's your library as much as mine," Harry shrugged. "Read whatever you want," he explained with a nod. "Actually, there's a few books in there that you probably shouldn't read, but that's only because they're pretty dangerous if you don't know what you're doing with them." He mused thoughtfully. "As long as you don't try any magic out of the books without checking with me, you can read whatever you want." "Thanks," the younger Harry beamed up, the happiness at having books of his own showing plainly on his face. "So, what caught your eye?" Harry asked, nodding down to the book. "Charms," he simplified, reading off the title and recognizing the book as one he'd read before. "Good place to start, I guess." He nodded with a small smile. "Professor Flitwick is the charms teacher. He was still there when I was an Auror," he explained with a laugh. "I just thought I'd like to know a bit more," the younger Harry explained. "You're performing all this magic, and Susan was talking about all the things her aunt had shown her. I just don't want to be left out." "You won't be," Harry shook his head quickly. "You're going to do fine at charms, damn good in transfiguration, but defense is where you're going to do your best." "Defense?" the younger Harry asked, looking up at his older self. "Defense against the dark arts," Harry nodded in confirmation. "Right, Susan told me about that one yesterday." The younger Harry frowned thoughtfully. "I'm going to be good at it?" "I wouldn't have become an Auror if I was crap at it," Harry smirked back, enjoying a mouthful of coffee. "Disarming charms, protection charms, banishing, bombarda, disillusionment, patronus. Those are all charms that you're going to learn and become really good at. They're the bread and butter of the defense course, really." "Oh," the younger Harry nodded, absorbing this for the moment. "So I should keep reading charms first then?" Harry nodded back, content to enjoy his coffee for the moment. "I'm going to organize with Amelia to put a Fidelius charm around our houses, this one and hers," he explained with a shrug. "It's a complicated charm, but it'll hide the houses from being discovered by anyone we don't invite here." "Big magic?" the younger Harry asked innocently. "Complicated magic," Harry nodded back. "Took me ages to learn that one. It's probably the only charm I know that took me longer than the animagus to learn." He mused with a thoughtful laugh. "Animagus?" the younger Harry asked, frowning at the strange word. "What's that?" "It's a ritual that lets you turn into an animal. It takes months and it's a pain in the arse," Harry admitted with a grimace. "There's a potion you have to make for it, and hold a leaf in your mouth for an entire month," he explained at his younger self's interested look. Dad and Sirius were great at it, they both did it and could change into animals whenever they wanted. "Minerva. Professor McGonagall," he corrected himself with a frown, making a mental note not to stay in the habit of calling the professors by their given names in front of his younger self. "She can do it as well, she turns into a house cat." "Wow." The younger Harry grinned eagerly. "Can I learn that?" "When you're a bit bigger," Harry laughed back. "It's pretty complicated, and if you mess it up you could be stuck as an animal forever." "Oh," the younger Harry frowned, but nodded at that warning. "What am I? What do you change into?" "A lion," Harry smiled widely at the shocked expression on his younger self's face. "Yeah, it was a surprise to me too." He grinned down. "But it feels right, it's not something you can really explain to anyone else, I guess that's why they don't teach it in school." He mused as he drained the last of his coffee from the mug. So. Miss Bones? The younger Harry asked with a small smirk on his face, looking up at his older self. Is she going to be around a lot? Probably, Harry nodded down. I didn't plan on letting her in on the secrets or anything, but she'd be a great help to us with everything we've got to do. He admitted thoughtfully. Susan said if you two started dating, we'd be brother and sister. The younger Harry explained, making a face at the thought. It's way too early for this conversation, Harry groused, rubbing his face with his spare hand. What do you think about me pretending to be your dad then? The younger Harry shrugged at that, looking up at his older self and thinking about it for a moment. I've never had a dad before. Me neither, Harry admitted, mirroring the shrug. It might be nice though? The younger Harry asked, looking up at his older self. You're sure? Harry mused thoughtfully. Wouldn't it be a bit weird, having yourself as your own dad? He asked, trying to get the thought straight in his head. Okay, I think I actually sprained my brain trying to understand what I just said there. Yeah, the younger Harry nodded in agreement, wrinkling his nose at the thought. So, I just call you Dad? I guess that'd be easier than both of us being called Harry, Harry nodded thoughtfully. And Miss Bones is going to call you James? The younger Harry asked. That's what we're going to tell everyone, Harry nodded back. And I really hope Dad doesn't mind, though knowing what I know about him, he's probably laughing his arse off somewhere at all of this. I hope so, the younger Harry smiled up, liking the thought of his dad actually being happy somewhere. Yeah, Harry smiled down, reaching down and ruffling his younger self's hair. Come on, let's have some breakfast then we can go shopping. I need some clothes, and I know you do too. Okay, the younger Harry nodded eagerly as he jumped up from where he'd been sitting on the doorstep. Can I get a coat like yours? He asked hopefully as he followed his older self through to the kitchen. That. Harry trailed off, glancing into the living room where his dragon skin trench coat was thrown over the leather couch. That was Dad's. Mum bought it for him when he was an Auror. I found it in the family vault when I finished school. Oh, the younger Harry whispered, looking into the living room reverently at the coat in question. Yeah, Harry nodded, understanding his younger self's expression. I don't think they do them in your size though, maybe when you're older. He smirked down to his younger self. Promise? The younger Harry asked hopefully. Promise, Harry grinned back. Come on, we should probably buy some food while we're out as well. I'm not exactly known for keeping the kitchen well stocked. He admitted with a grimace, thinking that his usual habit of just bacon or sausage sandwiches in the morning with a mug of coffee, then snacking through the day certainly wasn't going to help his younger self grow out of the malnourished body he'd suffered with, thanks to the Dursleys. More shopping? The younger Harry asked in a small whine. Part of being an adult, unfortunately, Harry grimaced with a nod. Being an adult isn't as fun as it looks, is it? The younger Harry asked as he looked around the kitchen and tried to see what he could do to help. Nope, Harry mused back, flicking his wand towards the oven hobs and lighting two of them up with a silent incantation. Bacon sandwiches okay again? Yes, the younger Harry nodded back happily, running to the cupboard where he knew the bacon was stored. Sit down, Harry groused with a laugh, shaking his head at how his younger self was trying to climb on the worktops to get to the cupboard overhead. I'll cook, you can fill up the kettle with water if you want, just don't burn yourself. I won't. The younger Harry promised eagerly, happily grabbing the stovetop kettle and carrying it over to the sink to fill it up with water. Harry nodded over, grabbing the frying pan and readying it to start cooking up some bacon. Is Susan going to be my friend then? The younger Harry asked curiously as he watched his older self start cooking. Yeah, she's a good friend. Harry nodded thoughtfully. She's pretty quiet though and got on with Hermione more for the first few years, but I think that was only because Ron was so brash and loud that he pushed everyone else away from me back then. Ron? The younger Harry asked, not having heard this name before. Ron, Harry grimaced, ruffling his hair in frustration as he tried to word this correctly. Ron was someone I thought was a friend, and he might have been one really, but he was too much like Dudley to be a real friend. Really? The younger Harry's face screwed up as he tried to imagine being friends with anyone that was like Dudley. He's a very jealous person who bullies anyone who can do things better than he can. Harry simplified with a nod. But he was the first person that was really friendly to me when I started school, so. He trailed off with a shrug. Like I said, I thought he was a friend, but he was only interested in being friends with someone famous until he became famous himself, then he let it go to his head. I hate people like that, the younger Harry frowned thoughtfully. You always will, Harry nodded back. Stay away from Ron this time around and you won't have to put up with him trying to control who you talk to and who you can be friends with. He explained with a shrug. The first time me and Hermione really became friends, it was because she'd run off after Ron made her cry. He sounds like a bully, the younger Harry frowned up at his older self. It took me a long time to see it like that, but yeah. Harry nodded back. I haven't been friends with him for a long time now. So it's better if I'm friends with Susan instead then? The younger Harry asked, watching as his older self flipped the bacon over with a quick flick of his wand. Definitely, Harry smiled back. Susan, Neville, Hannah, and Hermione. Those are the people that'll stick by you the most. Hannah? The younger Harry asked curiously. One of Susan's friends, she becomes Neville's girlfriend later on. Harry explained with a shrug. She's pretty cool, but gets pulled into things too easily. Alright, the younger Harry shrugged at that piece of information. Susan was telling me more about the houses at the school as well. Oh? Harry asked, raising his eyebrow at that. You said I'll be in Gryffindor? The younger Harry asked. Yup, Harry nodded back. Susan's in Hufflepuff, Neville and Hermione will be in Gryffindor with you. He explained with a shrug as he moved to get the bread out of the cupboard. What are the other houses? The younger Harry asked curiously. Ravenclaw, Harry mused aloud. Luna gets sorted there next year, they're supposed to be the smart house, but it's full of bullies really. Oh, the younger Harry frowned at that. Susan said that Slytherin was where the bullies were. She's right, Harry nodded back, bringing over the 2 plates of bacon sandwiches and putting them on the table before returning to the stove to finish making his coffee. Slytherin. There's a lot to talk about with what's going on in Slytherin, but there's 2 names I want you to remember. Draco Malfoy and Severus Snape. Who are they? The younger Harry asked, refilling his own glass of water before sitting down at the table and gingerly sliding over one of the bacon sandwiches. Draco Malfoy. He's a bully. He thinks he's better than everyone else just because he's a pure-blood wizard. He'll be a problem all the way through school and for quite a while after. Harry explained bluntly. The younger Harry frowned thoughtfully at that as he took a bite of his bacon sandwich and took note of what his older self was saying. Severus Snape, he's the leader of the Slytherins really, like Professor McGonagall is for the Gryffindors. Harry explained after swallowing a mouthful of his coffee. He's a spy, he's working for Dumbledore to spy on the evil wizards around, but he's a pretty nasty piece of work anyway and doesn't see anything wrong with hurting people or letting them get hurt even if he can stop it. He taught potions for me, but I'm going to make sure he's not there to cause the same problems for you. Potions, the younger Harry nodded, swallowing his bacon sandwich quickly. Susan told me about that, she said everyone's afraid of the potions professor and that he hates everyone. She's right, Harry nodded back. He's one of the worst bullies at the school, but Dumbledore keeps him around just to be his spy. Since I'll be getting rid of both of them, you shouldn't have any problems with either of them. Oh, the younger Harry nodded at that, trying to think about what his older self was planning. You're not going to kill them, are you? Probably not, Harry frowned thoughtfully. I'm not going to lie to you though, some people are going to die, there's a war coming if I can't stop Voldemort again, and it'll get worse before it gets better. I don't know if I could kill anyone. The younger Harry whispered. You won't have to, Harry promised over. When I was in school, I killed someone when I was only a year older than you are. He admitted with a sad sigh. He was possessed by Voldemort, but it took me a while to come to terms with what happened. Did you mean to do it? The younger Harry asked. It was a fight, he was trying to kill me so. Harry trailed off with a small shrug. Yes, I meant to do it, but I didn't understand what it meant back then. Will I have to do that? The younger Harry asked with wide eyes. No, Harry shook his head firmly. I'll deal with that, you focus on school and making friends, I'll deal with all the trouble so you don't have to. But I can help, really. The younger Harry said firmly, clearly wanting to be as helpful as he could be. I know you can, Harry laughed over the table. I wouldn't have made it through school if I wasn't capable of doing all that. He explained, pointing towards his younger self with his sandwich. The point is, I never had someone looking out for me who could do all of this, but you have me. He explained with a shrug. Oh, the younger Harry frowned, thinking about this for a moment. Is that what a dad is supposed to do then? I guess, Harry mused with a nod. Yeah, I think so. So you'd really be my dad then, not just a pretend dad? The younger Harry asked. If that's what that means, then. Yeah, I'd be your dad, I think. Harry frowned thoughtfully, ruffling his hair as he tried to figure that out in his head. I'd like that, the younger Harry simply shrugged, grinning over the table at his older self. I never had a dad, I've never been a dad. Harry muttered, scratching his stubble and wondering how on earth he'd gotten himself into this situation. You're my dad now. The younger Harry said simply, happily enjoying his breakfast and completely oblivious to the extremely confused look his older self was giving him. To be a kid again, Harry whispered to himself, bemused at how innocent and naive his younger self was. He hadn't been that innocent in a long time, it was something that his Hogwarts years and the war that followed had stolen from him, so it was really strange being faced with it again and realizing how much things had changed over the years. The younger Harry hadn't faced Voldemort, hadn't been betrayed by his friends time after time, and hadn't come to the realization that the country as a whole didn't deserve to be saved anymore. He was still innocent and optimistic about the future in a way he hadn't been in over 20 years. It was refreshing in some ways, but disheartening in others. Knowing that innocence he saw in his younger self wouldn't last, and it would be stolen away by bigotry and corruption and bullying. He happily just sat in silence as he enjoyed his bacon sandwich and coffee, watching as his younger self nibbled his way through his own bacon sandwich while reading the charms book he'd taken from the library. Was it worth trying to save that innocence that was still there? Or would a more innocent Harry just get hurt more over the years when the truth finally came and slapped him around the face? Was it worth even trying? Or should he simply help his younger self see the darker side of the world earlier on so he could be ready to face it head on? Or could he actually do this and change things for the better this time around? He wasn't sure if he actually could, but he was sure as hell going to give it a damn good try. Amelia? Harry called out, knocking on the front door of the Bones Manor. It was already hanging half open, indicating that Amelia or Susan were either around the house or the grounds outside somewhere. Shopping had been surprisingly easy, thankfully. After changing up a load of galleons into Muggle money, he'd managed to get a load of clothes for both him and his younger self, and managed to keep himself from laughing when his younger self seemed intent on copying his own carefree and hard-wearing style instead of choosing clothes that were his own style. "Through here, James, come on through." Harry smiled as he heard the call, pushing the front door open more and stepping through with his younger self in tow. It was still weird getting used to hearing Amelia calling him James, but at least he'd gotten used to his younger self calling him Dad all day, even with the little smirk he gave him every time. "Busy day?" Amelia asked, looking up from the couch to see the various bags of clothes he was carrying. "Shopping," Harry groused as he dropped the bags on the floor. "We've got a few hours left, so I was going to head to Diagon and pick up the rest of his school books and bits." "Ah," Amelia nodded thoughtfully. "I was planning on going myself, but have got caught up in paperwork instead." She admitted with a grimace at the piles of parchment around her. "I remember that, don't miss it," Harry admitted with a grin. "Well, I did manage to bring out some things for you." Amelia nodded, fishing around for a moment before grabbing the piece of parchment she'd been looking for and holding it out for him. "Fill that in and I'll file it tomorrow." Harry raised an eyebrow as he took the piece of parchment, recognizing it instantly as an Animagus registration form. What was amusing was that most of it had already been filled out for James Potter. "You want me to register?" he asked with a smirk. "The ministry relies on paperwork," Amelia nodded thoughtfully. "If I file this away and make it look like it's been overlooked, then when it's found it'll be used as more proof that you are who you say you are," she explained. "It will also make you legal, which will keep you on the good side of the Aurors," she explained, nodding to the other parchments she was holding out that were clearly marked as Auror employment forms. "I took the liberty of pulling up James' old records. There's nothing here that could be used against you. Some of it is actually rather helpful." "Oh?" Harry mused thoughtfully, taking the employment records with a curious expression on his face. James was a rather gifted Auror before he went into hiding at Albus Prompting. Alastor Moody was his senior Auror. All the dates and training certificates are in there. It's just a copy. All the real documents are still at the ministry. "Useful," Harry nodded, flicking through the various documents and making a mental note to read them more thoroughly when he got chance. "I made sure the unplottable charms and wards around the manor were secure last night. I'm ready to do the Fidelius whenever you are." "It still surprises me that you are powerful enough to perform a Fidelius. There aren't many wizards who have the will necessary to cast that charm." Amelia mused aloud. "You'll place it over this manor too?" "That's the plan," Harry nodded back. "Voldemort targeted this place when he came back to power last time. I'm just taking away that opportunity before he gets chance." "And our secret keepers?" Amelia asked curiously. "Each other." Harry shrugged. "Well, you and him." He mused, nodding to the younger Harry. "I can't cast the Fidelius and be the secret keeper at the same time, so he'll have to do it." "Rather a shame I lack the power to cast it myself," Amelia frowned but nodded in agreement. Are you all right with that? She asked, looking to the younger Harry. Yes? The younger Harry nodded quickly. I mean, I read all the stuff about it that Dad told me about, it all sounds pretty complicated, but I just need to know the secret and not tell anyone about it, right? Exactly, Amelia nodded with a smile. It's a lot of responsibility though. I know, the younger Harry nodded. But if you're responsible for keeping us safe, then we can do the same for you, right? He asked with a small smile. And it'll keep Susan safe too as well. It will, Amelia nodded back. Once we've got the Fidelius up, I'm going to start teaching Harry some charms and hexes to keep him safe. Harry announced. You've got him casting magic already? Amelia frowned over. You do know that's against the law? The law's a sack of shit on that one, you know it, I know it, James said firmly. There's barely a pure blood family out there that doesn't have their kids casting as soon as they start showing off accidental magic. The law is only there to stop Muggle-borns from having the same advantage just so pure blood families can get one over on them and be better at it when they start Hogwarts. It's a crock, and I'll tell anyone the same thing. He explained bluntly. Same as the trace, it only affects Muggle-borns, they can't trace pure blood kids because they're already living somewhere where there's magic being thrown around constantly. It's all biased against Muggle-borns, just like every other law on the books. Amelia mused over that with a frown. I can't deny it, but it's still the law. But, given what you're telling me about the future. She frowned thoughtfully, rubbing her temples and lifting the monocle out of her eye. Would you be willing to teach Susan as well? As long as she wants to, Harry shrugged. I already caught the mini-me working his way through a charms book this morning before breakfast. He explained with a smirk down at his younger self. So I figure teaching him some of the basics before he starts will be a good way to get ahead of the curve. A good plan, Amelia nodded back. You seem to be dealing rather well with the knowledge that your older self has come back in time? She asked, looking down to the younger Harry. It's not every day something like this happens, not even in our world. I didn't even know I was a wizard until he told me, or about magic or any of this. The younger Harry explained with a small shrug. But it answers a whole load of questions I had, and it's kinda cool to know how things are going to go. Only how things went for him, we're going to change how things go from here on. Amelia corrected him. I think I will join you for some shopping, however, Susan still needs some of her books and we haven't looked for a familiar yet for her. She mused thoughtfully. She's out in the back garden, would you mind? She asked, smiling towards the younger Harry. All right, the younger Harry shrugged before heading off back out the door to find Susan. Once the younger Harry had left, Amelia turned her attention to Harry properly. I've also started an investigation into the long-term prisoners in Azkaban. It's ruffled a few feathers, but I leaked information about it to the Prophet already to drum up some support. Oh? Harry asked, folding up the parchments Amelia had given to him and stuffing them into one of his shopping bags. All of the prisoners of Azkaban? It seemed more subtle than simply focusing on Sirius Black and drawing direct attention to what we were doing. Amelia clarified. Also, if there are more innocent people in Azkaban, I want to know about it. She explained firmly. I've had 2 junior Aurors start digging through trial transcripts already and comparing them to the names listed for Azkaban. I should have the information in a few days. As long as Fudge doesn't block you from pushing on with it, Harry frowned thoughtfully. Quite, Amelia nodded back. It may take a couple of weeks, but I'm certain I can get Sirius in front of a Wizengamot hearing before things come to a head at Hogwarts. Getting Dumbledore out of Hogwarts is the first step, Harry frowned, scratching his head as he tried to plan things out. If it's public enough that he hired Voldemort to teach at the school, that'll be enough to call a vote for his seat as the chief warlock as well. Perhaps bringing some reporters to Hogwarts with you then to witness the confrontation? Amelia asked dubiously. You're certain you can deal with Voldemort during the sorting ceremony? Easily, Harry nodded back with certainty. He's a ghost, a wraith-possessing Quirrell. Once I touch him, he'll start falling apart and be pushed out of the body. He'll run and hide when he realizes he can't do anything in response. As long as the students are safe, Amelia frowned back. They'll be safer without him, Dumbledore or Snape hanging around. Harry explained with a shrug. Once I confront Voldemort, Dumbledore will try and bluster his way out of it. That's where we'll need the media on our side, Amelia said with a smile. If we get the reporters to witness Voldemort's return, then it'll force Fudge into accepting it and starting preparations early, and we can use the same momentum to force Albus out of the school. Maybe, Harry mused aloud, ruffling his hair as he thought about it. I know just the person, she'll be able to watch the entire thing, and her poison quill will be working for us without her even knowing about it. Oh? Amelia asked, raising a lone silver eyebrow in response. Rita Skeeter, Harry answered with a knowing smirk, causing Amelia to frown back at him. Trust me, she's who will need to write the worst account of what's going on at that school. A few articles from her, and the entire country will be calling for Dumbledore's head. I can't deny you're right, but the idea of working with that woman is repugnant. Amelia frowned at the thought. Yeah, but I know all her secrets anyway, so if she steps off her leash. Harry smirked with a shrug. I have no problem crushing her like a bug this time around, I won't even lose any sleep over it. Amelia simply nodded at that, watching as Susan and the younger Harry came in from outside before they all started to get ready for a trip back to Diagon Alley. 31st of July, 1991. Potter Manor. Honley. West Yorkshire. England. James? Come on through, James yelled from the kitchen, recognizing Amelia's voice coming from the fireplace. What's going on? He asked, smiling as Amelia and Susan came through to the kitchen from the living room where the main fireplace was. Some things you should know about, and I thought it would be a nice surprise to bring Harry's birthday presents over in person. Amelia explained with a nod. He's out on his broom again, James explained with a knowing grin. There's some spares by the front door, nothing fancy though, but it'll get you in the air if you want. He explained with a nod to Susan. Just stay away from the silver birch one, that's it's a custom one of mine, it's more powerful than a Nimbus, so it's not really a good idea for anyone else to try it. He explained, quickly thinking up a story to explain away his birch lightning bolt broom from the future. Thanks, James. Susan grinned happily, dashing to the door to grab one of the spare brooms before running outside to catch up with her friend. Where do they get all that energy from? James groused, shaking his head in amusement. They steal it from us, Amelia answered with mock seriousness. Ah, that explains it. James grinned back. So, what's going on? Albus was prowling around the ministry again today, Amelia explained. I think Harry's disappearance has been noticed. Wouldn't surprise me, James shrugged with a disinterested look. He had. Something fig, a squib anyway, spying on me from down the street. He explained with a shrug. A few days or a week, she wouldn't have noticed, but I figured she'd have noticed something sooner or later. I had assumed he would have had someone watching, Amelia nodded thoughtfully. You've replied to Harry's Hogwarts letter? Yeah, all done and dusted. James nodded back as he started boiling some water. Coffee? He asked. Love one, Amelia nodded, moving around to put the presents she brought for Harry on the kitchen table. Albus was trying to drum up some of his old supporters. I caught him chatting to Kingsley yesterday in the department corridors. Not a big surprise there, Shacklebolt was one of his order of the burnt turkey as well. He was happy to take orders from Dumbledore last time even when it meant doing things against the Aurors. James explained bluntly. Shacklebolt, Tonks, Mad-Eye, those were the three Aurors I remember. I don't believe I know this Tonks? Amelia asked, raising an eyebrow as James finished making the coffee. Alastor retired several years ago though, he's not suitable to return to the Corps after so many years. The paranoia really got to him, I'm afraid. Think she's still at Hogwarts actually, either that or she finished last year, or this year. James mused aloud. Metamorphmagus, punk look, clumsier than a hippogriff on ice. He explained with a laugh. She's pretty fun, but she was in Dumbledore's pocket through and through last time. Even stuck with his orders to keep me locked up at the Dursleys after Sirius died and stopped me from going to his will reading. Amelia nodded, making a mental note to keep an eye out for that particular Auror recruit. I still can't believe you bought Harry a Nimbus 2000. She muttered with a disapproving frown. He can handle it, I did. James explained with a shrug as he finished the coffee off and brought it over to the table. Minerva got it for me when I made the Quidditch team first year, remember? This way Harry's not indebted to anyone in the school when he makes the team, and I can simply have it sent up to him. Have you had any more thoughts about my suggestion? Amelia asked, accepting the mug of black coffee with a nod of thanks. Teaching? James frowned, scratching his head idly. A bit, I'm not sure it's the best idea though. He admitted. Oh? Amelia asked, raising her eyebrow as she enjoyed a sip of the coffee. Suck at Hogwarts, I can't deal with the Horcruxes or be around to counter anything Voldemort does, he explained as he drummed his fingers on the table. But you'd be at the school to keep the children safe, Amelia countered. True, but that's no good if Voldemort takes control of the ministry like he did last time. James explained. It all depends on if Fudge pulls his head out of his arse when I bring Voldemort out for everyone to see. He's already been talking about the first day at Hogwarts, Amelia interrupted with a smirk. A few comments here and there, and he's convinced that being there to witness Harry's sorting was his best idea ever. He's even invited with Wizarding Wireless to cover it as well so he can be seen applauding and congratulating him on his return to the magical world. She explained with a snort of amusement. Anything for publicity, James rolled his eyes in amusement, remembering how bad Fudge had been. So I'll have an audience for Voldemort's grand unveiling then? He asked with a smirk towards Amelia. Certainly, Amelia chuckled in response. Cornelius, Albus, the Wizarding Wireless, the Daily Prophet if that reporter of yours shows up. She will, James nodded knowingly. Rita would be drooling over an exclusive like seeing Harry Potter sorting. Then everyone around the country will know Voldemort is back by the next morning. Even Cornelius wouldn't be able to spin that around. Amelia smiled contentedly at how the plan was coming together. He'll probably try though, or just bury his head in the sand and cry until it goes away. James muttered with a shake of his head. If he keeps that up again, we'll have to force a vote to get him out of power. By that point, you'll have been outed as James Potter to the world already. Amelia pointed out with a knowing smile. I'm not taking the job, James said firmly, holding up his hand to stop that idea in its tracks. No way, you can take it. I'll never get the votes, Amelia shook her head. Too many of the old families have grudges to grind against me. That's their problem, James groused, shaking his head at the stupidity of politics. Once Voldemort's outed, the dark families will flock back to him anyway, so it'll only be a matter of time before they're all unmasked. You remember them all clearly? Amelia asked. Malfoy, Nott, Lestrange, Crouch, Yaxley, Dolohov, Rowell, the Carrows James rattled off. I'd have to pull up the Pensieve again to remember all of them though. I've already got a trusted Auror watching Barty Crouch. You're certain he's got Junior under the Imperius at his house? Amelia asked curiously. That's what he told me, James nodded, doing his best to drag up every memory he had of Barty Crouch Jr. Amelia nodded at that. I'll stage a raid during the week, it shouldn't be too hard to uncover what's going on there, and then get both of the Crouches in front of the Wizengamot. Like that'll help, James snorted derisively, knowing full well that the Wizengamot was stocked with enough Death Eaters or sympathizers to make any trial little less than a sham. It'll help Sirius, Amelia said bluntly. If I can get him under Veritaserum, I can ask how many people he threw into Azkaban without trials. It might clear Sirius Black's name without having to stage his escape first. HNH, James frowned, thinking about that for a second. All right, that might work. He admitted thoughtfully. Keep the Daily Prophet around the trial though, that way it becomes public knowledge pretty much instantly and nobody can cover it up again. You don't have any faith in our government at all, do you? Amelia asked, a little depressed at how disillusioned James was with how their world was. After everything I've been through? James snorted, shaking his head. You saw all the memories I've got, would you trust the ministry after all of that? But you still worked for them? Amelia prompted him. She had to admit, he had a point. After seeing the memories of Harry's 5th, 6th and the rest of the war, she could definitely understand where his apathy and disgust towards the ministry came from. It's a job, James shrugged with a disinterested look. I'm not saying it's the worst job or anything, but it's what I was expected to do, and once I got into it I just sort of carried on with it. It's not what you actually want to do then? Amelia asked, curious what sort of life Harry would choose if he had the freedom to do what he wanted. What would you do if you had the choice then? James paused, frowning at the thought and ruffling his messy hair. I don't know. He admitted after a moment's pause. I've been living up to everyone's expectations for so long, that I don't even know what I want to do anymore. Maybe you should start, Amelia smiled over. Nobody here has any expectations of you. James snorted at that, shaking his head. Tell me that once everyone starts thinking I'm my dad. He muttered in amusement. I'll be expected to start back in the Aurors before the first copy of the Prophet has even been printed. You don't have to do what people expect you know, I certainly didn't. Amelia explained, enjoying a mouthful of her coffee while he looked at her in confusion. The last grown witch of the Bones line? Even taking care of Susan, everyone wanted me to marry into a good line and continue the Bones family. Does that matter to you? James asked, leaning against the kitchen worktop as he thought about what Amelia was saying. Not in the way you think, Amelia shook her head. Most pure-blood witches don't go into work like I did, and certainly not through the DMLE. It also occurred to me that if I marry someone, then it would fall to Susan to continue the Bones family once I was married. James nodded, understanding that at least. Quite, Amelia nodded in confirmation. So I decided to ignore the expectations people had of me, and focus on living my life by what I wanted, not living the life other people wanted for me. She explained, pausing to enjoy a mouthful of coffee. I'm not saying marriage is off the cards, but finding a wizard willing to put up with my work, with coming second to Susan, and willing to let me keep my name so Susan can be free to marry who she wants when the time comes? I see your point, James mused aloud. And you, any thoughts on continuing the Potter name? Amelia asked with a small smile over towards him. None, James admitted bluntly. I'm not even thinking about anything like that until Voldemort's dealt with. Once that mess is all over again, I'll be able to breathe easier. A sensible plan, Amelie said thoughtfully. I did have something for you though, despite your regular rants about not celebrating your birthday. She explained with a small smile, lifting up a small package in silver wrapping paper and gently tossing it over to him. Amelia. James groused, catching the wrapped present easily and eyeing it dubiously. He hadn't really celebrated his birthday in years now, and was more than happy to continue on the tradition. It was just another day for him. The only person that ever really cared for the last few years was Hermione, and she always sent either a card and a little present, but nobody else really bothered with it, and it was just the way he liked it. Go on, you'll like this. Amelia promised, putting her mug of coffee down on the table as she moved over to join him by the worktop, watching as he slowly unwrapped the present to reveal a box underneath that he gingerly opened. I dug it out of the old records, nobody goes down there, so it won't be missed. She explained when she saw him looking at the present in shock. This. Is this, James whispered, running his hand over the silver and gold badge that was shaped like a pentagram around a shield, with a pair of stylized crossed wands across the front. The name J. Potter was engraved underneath, leaving no guesses needed as to who the owner had been. My dad's shield, he said softly. I thought it'd be better with you than in a dusty box down in the ministry's basement, Amelia smiled, nudging him with her shoulder gently. Happy birthday, Harry, she whispered before quickly leaning in and kissing him on his cheek. 6th August. We got him. James quite literally fell off the sofa in shock at the loud shout that came through the living room, startling him from where he'd been happily sprawled out on the couch and reading a random Transfiguration book that he'd picked up from the upstairs library. Evening, Amelia, he muttered dryly, staying on the floor and glaring up at where he could now see Amelia had stepped through the fireplace. It's all right, Harry, it's just Amelia. He snorted, nodding towards where his younger self had run down the stairs to find out what the yelling was all about. Barty. We got him. Amelia confirmed, striding over and pulling James up off the floor with a yank on his arms. Sentenced to life in Azkaban, Junior got thrown to the Dementors, she said with a nod. Well, that's a turn-up, James mused thoughtfully, tossing his book down on the couch for now as he tried to figure out what this meant. Life in Azkaban? He asked, looking to Amelia for confirmation. I got him under Veritaserum for over an hour in front of the entire Wizengamot. He admitted to keeping his son under the Imperius, casting it pretty much every week for years, just to keep him under control. Amelia explained. Sneaking him out of Azkaban, bribing the guards to leave him alone so he could switch his dying wife into the cell, the whole story. Damn, yeah, that'd do it. James grunted, ruffling his hair thoughtfully. What else? He asked, spotting the excited smirk on Amelia's face. I got to ask how many people he'd tossed in Azkaban without trials. She confirmed before setting her jaw, the earlier smile gone like dust in the wind as she moved into her full business mode. How many? James asked, already dreading the number. 42, Amelia grimaced as she announced the number. Fuck. James. Amelia berated him, slapping him around the shoulder when she saw the younger Harry staring at his adult self in shock. Sorry, James frowned, looking down to his younger self. Adults swear, don't do it at school, you'll lose house points for it. But if I don't get caught? Harry asked with a cheeky grin. There you go, James smirked down with a snort of laughter. Don't encourage him, yourself, whatever. Amelia frowned, slapping James' shoulder again. You're a terrible influence on yourself, you know that? She muttered, shaking her head in exasperation. All right, James grumbled, rubbing his shoulder where Amelia kept hitting him. Did you get names? All of them. Sirius wasn't even the first he tossed away, he'd been doing it for years and covering it all up. Amelia explained. The Wizengamot was in uproar. Barty will be staying in Azkaban even if he could escape, it's about the only place that's safe for him. At least a dozen members of the Wizengamot had family members that had been denied a trial, they were screaming about calling Barty out for an honor duel right in the chambers. Fudge? James asked, raising an eyebrow curiously. Blustering around as usual, blaming everything on Barty and the previous administration, but he took a big hit with it and everyone's pushing for all the people thrown in Azkaban to get a full trial, if not released outright. Amelia explained. I've got Oris chasing down Bagnold now to find out what she knew about it all, but nobody's seen her in months. That won't work, James frowned thoughtfully. Dropping back onto the couch and lazing back as he started tapping his knuckles on his knee. Sirius will need a trial to clear his name. Even if he's released, nobody will believe he's innocent unless he gets a trial. He explained. Dumbledore? Albus was giving Barty his usual disappointed glare throughout the entire thing. He did look actually surprised when Sirius' name was read out though. Amelia admitted. Not surprised, James mused aloud. He's an arse. He trailed off when he saw the glare Amelia was giving him, then shrugged before continuing. But I don't think he'd be in on keeping innocent people in Azkaban. He's too big on giving people more chances than they deserve to do anything like that. For what it's worth, I agree with you. Amelia nodded, moving over to join him on the couch, her traditional Wizengamot purple robes clashing drastically with his casual blue Muggle jeans and green t-shirt. Does that mean Sirius is going to be free? Harry asked, speaking up for the first time. Hopefully, kiddo, Amelia nodded over. We'll have to get him a trial first, but once I get him in front of the Wizengamot and get him to take some Veritaserum, it's only a matter of time. That's great. Harry grinned excitedly, having been told stories about Sirius by his older self. Will he be coming to live here too? We'll see, James nodded over. How's your studying coming? He asked, oddly curious how his younger self had been doing. Great. Harry beamed over. I'm working on the Charms book today. Again? James asked, raising an eyebrow. He didn't remember being this excited about Charms when he was Harry's age. Go on then, keep at it and you'll be Flitwick's best student this year. Harry nodded eagerly at that, dashing back off up the stairs to return to his books. Charms? Amelia asked, looking to James for clarification. Don't look at me, that's all him. James explained with a shrug. I honestly can't remember ever being that excited about Charms, but he's diving right into it. There's differences already between the two of you? Amelia asked, raising an eyebrow in amusement at this little fact. HNH, James snorted, nodding slowly as he thought about it. At this point I was locked in my bedroom with my relatives pretending I didn't exist. He mused thoughtfully. I remembering reading through a history of magic and flicking through the others, not devouring books like he's been doing. Whereas Harry has an entire library open to him for the first time, without anyone judging him or yelling at him for touching the books. Amelia pointed out. It was obvious there were going to be changes between the two of you as you changed things from your personal history. I'm just surprised something like this has shown up so early. I guess, James frowned thoughtfully. He'd done his best to keep as many things for Harry as similarly as he could. He'd found Hedwig again and bought her for him. He had the same books, new robes, the same Nimbus broom. You're treating him like a son as well, and he's looking to you to be the father neither of you had. Amelia explained thoughtfully. That's going to change things, even little things like how Harry sees different people in authority and compares them to you. This is a lot more complicated than I'd thought, James grimaced, ruffling his hair in annoyance. Alright, so what are we going to do about Sirius? Once he's freed? Amelia asked. He'll be remanded to St. Mungo's for treatment. Being in Azkaban for a decade won't have been kind to him. I saw in your memories he was practically feral when he escaped in your time. Yeah, James admitted with a nod. He got better, slowly, but Dumbledore didn't help by keeping him locked up like he was a prisoner in the home he hated. Amelia frowned at that, but as both of them knew how each other felt about Albus Bloody Dumbledore, neither of them needed to say anything more. Did you collect the Horcrux? The ring? James nodded. Destroyed it already. He explained with a shrug. Took it down to the forest when Harry was asleep, a quick burst of fiend fire and it was toast. He paused, frowning again when he realized what he'd said. You know, it's almost anticlimactic doing it this way. We spent over a year hunting them down last time, and I just destroyed one because Harry had gone to bed early and I was bored. He explained with a shrug, happy that he at least had managed to secure the other resurrection stone from the scorched remains and had locked it away upstairs for now. You poor thing, Amelia muttered sarcastically, rolling her eyes at him. And you know where the others are? As soon as Sirius gets us into Grimmauld, I can torch the next one. James nodded firmly. I'll get the tiara once I've dusted Voldemort, and that just leaves the cup. He explained, still mentally trying to figure out a way how to deal with the Horcrux that was currently lodged in his younger self's head. Excellent, Amelia smiled happily at that. There is someone I'd like you to meet though, She's been a good friend of mine since Hogwarts, and I think she'd be someone that could help us. Okay, I'll bite? James asked, raising an eyebrow towards Amelia. Julia Greengrass. Amelia explained. She's on the Hogwarts Governor's Board as well as the St. Mungo's Governors. The Greengrasses have had family seats there and on the Wizengamot for generations. Greengrass, James mused aloud thoughtfully. Greengrass, Greengrass, he muttered to himself. I know that name from somewhere. He frowned to himself. Daphne Greengrass, her oldest daughter? She'll be starting Hogwarts this year? Amelia prompted him. Daphne? James asked, rolling the name around in his head. Nope, doesn't ring a bell. Astoria? Amelia asked curiously. Astoria, now that does. James nodded, clicking his fingers and turning to Amelia. Her youngest, Amelia explained. 3 years younger than Daphne. Cyrus was a good man. Astoria, James continued to mutter to himself as he racked his memory. Astoria Malfoy. He clicked his fingers as he remembered the name. She married Draco Malfoy. He grinned, happy he'd worked through that little memory block. Oh, that poor thing, Amelia muttered dryly, not wanting to wish that future on anyone. You said Cyrus was a good man? James asked, emphasizing the past tense. Indeed, he died, an honor duel 7 years ago. Amelia nodded. Corbin Yaxley cut him down with a collection of dark curses that should have seen him in Azkaban, but because it was an officiated duel, there wasn't anything I could do for her. Yaxley, I know, James muttered darkly, remembering well the dark bastard that took over the DMLE under Voldemort's reign of terror. All right, why'd you want me to meet with her? And what should we tell her? She's a good person, she's kept her family together even with threats from the darker families trying to take control of the Greengrass fortune. Amelia explained. She's got the ear of the Hogwarts governors and will be able to neutralize Lucius Malfoy's influence. Well, you've sold me there. James admitted with a nod. Anyone that can help kick Dumbledore out or kick Malfoy in the nuts is a good person in my book. He explained with a grin. Set it up and I'll meet her. Good, Amelia smiled, thankfully at him. I think, however, we should keep the appearance of you being James Potter to her, if only for the fact that she does deal with the Hogwarts staff from time to time, and I'm unsure how her occlumency would hold up to Albus or Severus. HNH, James grunted but nodded along. The fewer people in the know, the better as far as I'm concerned. He admitted. I've already got the mini-me asking why he can't tell Susan about me. And his occlumency? Amelia asked with an amused glance. About as strong as a wet paper bag, James groused. I can't talk though, I didn't learn until 6th year, and that was with Snape raping my mind every week until I figured out how to block him out. Keep at it, Amelia smiled reassuringly. I'm sure he'll get it, you have to be a much better teacher than Severus was. Not hard, Hedwig would be a better teacher than Snape was. James snorted in amusement. I'll meet your friend, when do you want to do it? I'll set up dinner this week sometime, is Harry all right on his own for one evening? Amelia asked dubiously. Sure, James nodded. Seriously, I was on my own at that age more often than not, he'll keep his nose stuck in that charms book anyway, I've lost count of the amount of times I've had to run drying charms over his room because he was practicing Aguamenti inside. He complained with a good-natured grin. Aguamenti? That's a 6th year charm? Amelia asked, the shock visible on her face. It's not that hard, I used to use it a lot with a Glacius charm to secure chunks of ice around idiots that were running from me or trip them up with ice underfoot. James explained with a shrug. I knew I found it easy, so figured Harry would have an easy go with it too. You're going to drive Phileas absolutely crazy, you know that? Amelia asked, smirking at him. I assume you've taught him Glacius as well? Of course, James grinned back at her. He was showing that one off to Susan earlier in the week when he fetched their drinks after the lesson. He explained with a snort of laughter. How did Susan do? She asked, honestly curious as to how her little niece was handling things. Actually pretty good, she's handy enough with the disarming spell already, that's the first one I taught them both, she's got pretty good reflexes so it'll be a good way to keep her safe. James explained. Was weird teaching it to her again though, I remember teaching Susan when she was part of the DA back in 5th year. I don't remember her getting it this fast last time though. There were more students from what I remember of your memories? Amelia mused aloud. Perhaps one-to-one teaching with just her and Harry allowed her to pick it up a bit quicker this time. Maybe, James nodded thoughtfully. Not a big deal, I'm just happy they'll both be able to hold their own against any of the idiots in the school. You won't rethink your decision to take over the defense class once Quirrell is gone? Amelia asked. Definitely not, James shook his head. Between dealing with the Horcruxes, the Death Eaters worming out of the woodwork after we reveal Voldemort, dealing with Fudge and having Sirius around again? He trailed off with a snort of laughter. Not only no, but hell no. He explained with a laugh. I see your point, Amelia chuckled to herself. I can't say I ever spent much time with Sirius before his, well, imprisonment. Honestly, neither did I, James admitted with a frown. I've got maybe a summer's worth of memories with him, and a splattering of letters. Dumbledore kept us from spending too much time together, and with him being on the run and recovering from Azkaban. He trailed off, rubbing his face in frustration. I don't know how much of what I knew of Sirius was really him, or what was his more crazy side that came out because of his stint in Azkaban. Once he's been treated, I'll make sure you both get some time to talk, Harry as well. Amelia nodded with a small smile. Oh, that'll be fun, Harry smirked. He's already halfway towards crazy, thanks to Azkaban, and I walk in looking just like his dead best friend? That'll go down great, I'm sure, he exclaimed with a snort of amusement at the idea, mentally picturing Sirius feigning like a little girl at the sight. Ah, I hadn't thought of that. Amelia admitted with a grimace at how badly that could actually go. Perhaps it would be better if myself and Harry break things to him in a more gentle manner? You think? James muttered, shaking his head at the thought. I'll figure out how to break things to Sirius once he's stable, no point in piling more on when he's still recovering from Azkaban. All right, Amelia nodded in agreement with that. Until the trials are over with then, there's little else to do until Harry and Susan start Hogwarts. HNH, James grunted in agreement, more than happy to just laze on the couch and relax until things heated up again. Speaking of, where is Little Red today anyway? Sleep over with Hannah, Amelia explained with a smile. I thought I'd be in the chambers much later than I was, so the Abbotts took her for the night again. Ah, James smiled, remembering Hannah and Susan's friendship well enough. Hannah? Amelia asked, prompting James with one of her usual questions about what the future held. Married, took over the Leaky. She's happy, 2 kids and a third on the way. James explained with a smile as he thought back to his friends. Married? Amelia whispered, turning to James with the hint of juicy gossip now. Do tell? Neville Longbottom, James laughed back at Amelia's expression. They're good together actually, she runs the Leaky, he's a professor at Hogwarts, herbology. He's like a prodigy or something. He explained with a shrug. Well, Amelia chuckled to herself. That. I never thought I'd see that. She admitted with a smile. Houses? Neville was in Gryffindor with me, Hannah was in Hufflepuff with Susan. James explained. A Hufflepuff and a Gryffindor, how scandalous. Amelia mocked with a small laugh. I assume you've noticed how often Susan and Harry have been talking and sending owls to each other? Hard not to, James laughed. And no, I'm not going to say anything to him. He explained, holding up his hands in surrender. If something happens with him and Susan, that's down to them. I'm not getting involved in the Mini-Me's girlfriend choices. But you wouldn't be opposed to it? Amelia asked curiously. Not at all, James admitted, stretching out on the couch. It's his life, if Susan makes him happy, that's his thing, we've already established he's going to be a different Harry than I was. He explained as he stood up. Anyway, if Little Red's staying out, you hanging around for dinner then? If it's not an imposition? Amelia asked. Not at all, I've got a gammon joint I've been planning to cook up, plenty for the 3 of us. James smiled down. Get comfortable, I'll get it started. Kind of you, Amelia smiled up, watching as he headed through to the kitchen before she started to take off her purple Wizengamot robes to reveal her more casual leggings and blouse underneath. Anything I can do to help? She asked loudly, calling through to the kitchen as she stood up to hang her robes up on the coat hanger in the corner of the room. I'm good, James called back. Amelia nodded at that, heading through to the kitchen so she could continue talking with him anyway instead of sitting in the living room on her own. So, I'll finally get to taste this cooking of yours then. Yup, James chuckled, his back to her as he focused on a few charms to peel some potatoes before throwing them into boil. There's drinks in the cupboard by the door, help yourself to anything in there. Amelia smiled at that, moving to the cupboard to investigate what sort of drinks James kept in the house, and was pleasantly surprised by a selection of wines along with the usual bottle of fire whiskey, butterbeers and a few muggle drinks. Wine? Don't look at me, it was here when I got here. James explained with a shrug. It'll be my grandparents', so don't blame me if it's bad or anything, I never got the hang of drinking the stuff. Amelia nodded absently, running her fingers over the various bottles of wine before making a selection of a medium dry red that would go with a gammon joint well. Glasses? Somewhere, James admitted, turning around for the first time. Sorry, try the cupboard by the sink, I think I saw some wine glasses in there, he said quickly, covering up his dry mouth when he caught sight of Amelia in her more casual clothes. Surely we can be adults here? Amelia chuckled, ignoring James' flustered look as she headed to the cupboard he indicated to look for a wine glass. Sorry, James frowned, turning around again in time to see Amelia stretching up to retrieve a glass, giving him a very nice view of her backside in the process. It's. There's nothing wrong with looking, Amelia chuckled, not even turning around as she found the glass she was after. I'll admit, it's been a while since a man looked at me like that. Sorry, James apologized again. But. Why? I don't mean to ask anything personal, but. He frowned, gesturing to her. I never knew what you looked like under all those robes, he said, trailing off awkwardly. Not all of us like to show off like you do in those tight Muggle t-shirts, Amelia laughed, stalking her way over to him and tapping his chest to emphasize her point. Most pureblood witches are taught to be more demure and keep covered up from a young age. I always wondered what the thing with robes was, James muttered, shaking his head in bemusement. And as I explained, there aren't many wizards willing to get involved with a witch in my position, and that's not even mentioning the wizards who couldn't deal with a strong and self-assured witch. Most wizards prefer their witches to be more demure and unassuming, submissive to their wishes. I have never been, and will never be a meek and submissive witch. Amelia explained with a laugh. Judging by your memories, you have no problems with it, I assume? No? James asked, more to himself than to Amelia. Good, Amelia grinned wolfishly, gripping onto the neck of his t-shirt with one hand and pulling him down into a searing kiss before pressing against him and pushing him to the wall so she could press the kiss as much as she wanted, savoring every moment of his earthy taste as she drew his bottom lip into her mouth and teased it gently with her teeth. I was right, you are delicious, she whispered, breaking the kiss but staying pressed tightly against his body. Wow, James breathed out, not having expected that whatsoever. Wow indeed, Amelia smirked before pulling him down to meet her lips and into another forceful kiss as she felt his arms wrap around her and pull her even tighter against his body. Neither of them broke for quite a while after that, both more than happy to loose each other in the kisses that became more and more passionate. It wasn't until an interruption made them pause, breaking the mood quite abruptly and causing them to jump away from each other like a bucket of ice water had been thrown over them. My eyes. My eyes. Neither of them saw the younger Harry, but the sound of his footsteps running away from the scene was more than enough to send them both laughing into hysterics for several minutes afterwards.